Do you remember your embarrassing moment? It happens without warning. Whether you are driving, you are in the shower, you are lying in bed, staring at the ceiling at 2 in the morning, and suddenly, from nowhere, a memory arrives. Not a good one. The time you called your teacher mom in front of the whole class, the thing you said at the party that went wrong, the moment your voice cracked at exactly the wrong time, the email you sent to the wrong person, the joke nobody laughed at. You feel it in your body before you understand it in your mind. A wave of heat, a tightening in the chest, the urge to physically cringe, to make a sound, to press your hands against your face as if that will somehow contain it. The memory is years old, decades maybe, and yet it arrives with the full force of something that happened this morning. Why does this happen? Why does the brain preserve these specific moments with such exquisite precision while forgetting entire years of ordinary life? Why does embarrassment burn itself into memory in a way that almost nothing else does? The answer involves how your brain actually works, what it was designed to protect you from, and why the very system that is tormenting you at 2 in the morning is also one of the main reasons your species survived. Start with the basic neuroscience. Your brain does not store memories the way a camera stores photographs. It does not record everything with equal fidelity and file it away for later retrieval. Memory is selective, and the selection is not random. The brain applies an emotional filter to everything it experiences. Experiences tagged with strong emotion are stored more durably, more vividly, and more accessibly than experiences without emotional charge. The mechanism responsible for this is a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent decades mapping the amygdala's role in emotional memory. His research showed that when an emotionally significant event occurs, the amygdala sends signals that trigger the release of stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, and these hormones act directly on the hippocampus, the brain's primary memory formation region, to encode the experience more deeply. The more emotionally intense the experience, the stronger the hormonal signal and the more indelible the memory. This is why you can remember exactly where you were when you heard devastating news, but you cannot remember what you had for lunch 3 Tuesdays ago. Emotional intensity is the brain's signal that something matters, that something should be remembered, that the information might be needed again. And embarrassment is one of the most intensely emotional experiences a social animal can have. This is the key insight. Embarrassment is not a trivial feeling. It is not the brain overreacting to small things. It is a specific ancient hardwired response to a specific kind of threat. And to understand why, you need to understand what your ancestors were actually afraid of. For almost all of human evolutionary history, social exclusion was not a metaphor for discomfort. It was a death sentence. Human beings survived as cooperative, interdependent groups. Alone, a single human is a slow, physically unimpressive animal with no claws, no armor, no venom, and no particular speed. In a group, humans became the most dangerous predator on the planet. The group was survival. Losing your place in the group, being rejected, ostracized, cast out, meant in a literal and immediate sense that you were likely to die. Social neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA has spent years studying how the social brain works. His research demonstrates that the brain's social monitoring system is not a peripheral add-on. It is central, ancient, and always running. The same regions that process physical pain, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the anterior insula, also process social pain. Social rejection activates the same neural architecture as physical injury. Your brain does not distinguish at the level of its alarm systems between being stabbed and being laughed at. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. Embarrassment is the feeling your brain generates when it detects a threat to your social standing. When you do something that risks the group's perception of you, when you violate a social norm, when you are exposed as less competent or less controlled than you presented yourself, when others witness your failure, the social monitoring system fires an alarm. That alarm is embarrassment. And because social standing was literally a matter of survival, that alarm is loud, persistent, and deeply encoded. Now add the memory system. Because embarrassment registers as a social threat, because the amygdala flags it as genuinely dangerous, it triggers the full hormonal cascade that creates durable, vivid, long-term memory. The memory is stored not as a neutral record of events, but as a threat archive. a detailed, emotionally charged file that your brain keeps accessible, precisely because it believes the information might prevent the same mistake from happening again. This is why the memory keeps returning. It is not a glitch. It is a feature. The brain is doing what it evolved to do, rehearsing a social threat scenario so that you will recognize similar situations faster in the future. Psychologist Mark Baldwin at McGill University studied what he called relational schemas, the internal models people carry of how they appear to others. His research found that embarrassing memories function as social calibration data. They update your internal model of how others see you, and they remain accessible because your brain treats them as operationally useful, not as punishment, as protection. But here's the twist that makes this so strange. The protection system overestimates the threat dramatically. When you cringe at a memory from 7 years ago, you are responding as if the social consequences are still unfolding, as if the people who witnessed the moment are still thinking about it, as if your standing in the group is still actively at risk. But research consistently shows that this is an illusion. Psychologist Thomas Gilovich at Cornell University has spent decades studying what he calls the spotlight effect, the systematic human tendency to overestimate how much other people notice and remember our mistakes, embarrassments, and awkward moments. His studies showed that people consistently believe their blunders are far more salient to observers than they actually are. In experiment after experiment, observers barely noticed or quickly forgot the very moments that the subject experienced as catastrophic. The reason is simple. Everyone else is the center of their own experience. Everyone else is running their own social monitoring system, worrying about their own standing, processing their own embarrassments. The bandwidth they have available to remember yours is far smaller than you imagine. Your worst moment is almost certainly not anyone else's lasting memory. It is yours alone. And yet, the brain does not update this information automatically. The social threat encoding system is not designed to be rational. It is designed to be cautious. It errs on the side of treating social threats as persistent rather than resolved. Because in ancestral environments, the cost of being wrong in that direction, assuming a social threat had passed when it had not, could be catastrophic. Better to keep rehearsing the threat. Better to stay alert. There is one more layer to this. Psychologist June Tang Tangney at George Mason University spent decades studying the difference between shame and embarrassment. Her research found an important distinction. Shame, the feeling that something is wrong with you as a person, tends to produce withdrawal, paralysis, and self-concealment. Embarrassment, the feeling that you did something awkward or wrong in a specific situation, tends to produce repair behavior. Embarrassment, Tangney found, is actually prosocial. The cringe is a signal to yourself and to others that you are aware of the social norm you violated, that you care about the group's standards, that you are motivated to maintain your place and your reputation. The people who feel no embarrassment, the people who violate social norms with complete indifference, are not emotionally stronger. They are socially dangerous. The capacity for embarrassment is evidence of a functioning social conscience. Your worst memories are not proof of your failures. They are proof of your social awareness, of your investment in the group, of the ancient human drive to belong, to be seen, to matter to the people around you. When the memory arrives tonight, the teacher, the party, the email, the cringe, here is what you are actually experiencing. You are experiencing a social brain that is functioning exactly as it was designed to function. Running a rehearsal it believes will protect you. Preserving a memory it has classified as important. Doing its best to keep you safe in a world that no longer punishes most social mistakes with death. The cringe is old. The threat it was designed for is mostly gone. But the system runs anyway. It ran for the person who misspoke around the fire 50,000 years ago and lay awake replaying it. It ran for every human who ever felt the heat rise in their face and wished they could disappear. It is the same system, running the same program, in a world that has changed far faster than evolution can follow. You are not alone in this. You never were. Every human who has ever existed has lain awake with a version of your worst memory. And every one of them, eventually, fell asleep. I think this video might give you the right view. If it did, then please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for more updates.